trigonometry, we have had triangles drawn for us with nice sides labeled. When we are working on trig word problems, it's a little bit trickier because they don't give us a nice picture. And not only do we need to set everything up correctly, we also have to draw the picture. So you might be tempted not to draw a triangle and just try to figure it out, but that makes it so much more difficult. So my first tip in trig word problems is to always draw. Start by drawing a right triangle and then figure out how everything else fills in. My second tip is that walls, people, buildings, trees, etc. are always going to meet the ground at a 90-degree angle. So if you're not sure where your right angle is, if it has like a tree meeting the ground or a person standing on the ground or a building, usually that's where your right angle is going to be, assuming it's outdoors. Really, you just have to think about the situation and what would meet at a right angle. Another term that they use often is this term, angle of elevation. Angle of elevation has to do with how far something is tilted off the ground. So this calculator has an angle of elevation with the table of 0 because it's flat on the table. As I lift the calculator, this angle starts to increase. So if you have like a ramp or a ladder, the angle of elevation is this angle here where it's meeting the ground. Okay, so here's our example. A ramp for a building has an angle of elevation of 3 degrees. The horizontal distance is 12.4 meters. How long is the ramp? So I'm going to have a right triangle. I can't use trig if I don't have that. So I'm thinking about my ramp, and I know I have a right angle because my building is going to meet the ground at a right angle. And then I have my ramp, and I want to know how long it is. This distance I'm going to call x. That's the actual ramp, like someone would move up the ramp. When it says horizontal distance, that's going to be exactly along the ground, like just left and right, a flat line, and that's 12.4 meters. This is a horizontal distance, and this would be considered the vertical distance. So horizontal and vertical distances are always going to be making up your right angle because it means directly along the ground or like directly in the air. The angle of elevation, as you know, is how far the ramp is lifting from the ground. So that's 3 degrees. With this information, I need to find the value of x. So this is my given angle, and this is my hypotenuse. In relation to the given angle, this would be opposite, and this side is adjacent. So since I have my adjacent side and my hypotenuse, and I don't know anything about the opposite side, I need the ratio with adjacent and hypotenuse, which is the cosine ratio. So the cosine of 3 degrees equals adjacent 12.4 over hypotenuse, which I'm calling x. So the cosine of my angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. We've done this a few times now, so we should know we need to get x out of the denominator, so multiply by x on both sides. X times the cosine of 3 is equal to 12.4. And now, because I have multiplication here, I'm going to get rid of it by dividing. So divide by the cosine of 3 on both sides. To do this, I'm going to use my calculator. 12.4 divided by the cosine of 3. Anytime that you are using your calculator, you want to make sure that you are in degree mode. So hit mode and make sure that your mode is degrees. Because currently in geometry, we're studying angles in degrees. So 12.4 divided by the cosine of 3. 12.4 divided by the cosine of 3. So my ramp is 12.4. What? Okay. So my ramp is 12.4 also, meters long. It's like a little bit longer than 12.4. I guess that makes sense since this angle is so small that this distance is actually going to be really similar to this distance. So the ramp itself is also 12.4 meters. You saw it here. So keeping these tips in mind as you do other word problems, draw, think about where your 90-degree angle is, angles of elevation are how far things lift off the ground, and think about when you set up your ratios what information you have so you can select which ratio you need to use.